We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
E-A-G-L-E-S Eagles!
Swinging a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball. Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup for the lead. Yes!
Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Oh, good morning. We got a little Flyers conversation here because we're drunk on the ice, but it's there's a lot of stuff going on, Mark. There's since the last time we were talking, we now know the lottery position. We now know that where they're going to pick. We know that they got a new coach. We got a lot of stuff going on, man. It's a good morning to start talking hockey. It's a little wet and gross and spring, and Mother Nature can't figure out what the hell's going on. But we're gonna be talking all things hockey. Listen, before we get started, I got to give a huge shout out to one of our sponsors, Philly Drinkers. They sent over a little care package gift card that we all got a little bit of something. So looking forward to getting that stuff on the air, sharing their stuff. They got a lot of good stuff going on. And listen, you use the code DrunkOnBroad15, you're gonna get yourself a little discount. We'll get a little kickback. And you'll end up with some solid merch, and you can rock that stuff any place you want. But Mark, you picked out. Correct me if I'm wrong. You got it. You got yourself a nice little Flyers hat.
I did, yeah. It was the PHL hockey like golf hat with like the
rope,
the rope on it, and
nice,
pretty sharp. It's pretty sharp. So I'm excited for that. I haven't gotten it yet, but it's on its way. So I'm excited. But they got all kinds of awesome stuff at Philly Drinkers. So you have to check
really
that
good
out
stuff.
for sure.
Well, listen, Mark. The draft lottery position comes out. Not ideal, to say the least. They fall to they're going to end up picking sixth. Talk to me about that particular, how that night played out for you, and then how where your mind goes when you see where they're going to pick.
Yeah, I thought the new show, like the new format for the show, was kind of cool. Very like reality TV based, like kind of it felt, and they did a good job with the drama and things like that. I thought it was kind of cool, and I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. Didn't enjoy the Flyers falling, but did enjoy the drama around the ping pong balls coming up, and them doing it that way as opposed to the cards with the logos and turning the card around. I thought that was kind of cool, but
I found it a little bit hard to follow. I couldn't figure the all the drama with the getting to the number one pick,
right,
and then there was still that whole process of the number two pick, which was still a really, really important pick,
right.
And they almost kind of panned away, started talking about the number one pick while that was all going on in like this little window in the bottom.
Yeah,
there was this whole sequence of stuff, like events of things that like I was having a really hard time following, like how exactly they were getting, because there was, it seemed very cryptic, which kind of feeds into what you're talking that more that like reality TV show thing. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, no,
Here we are.
it definitely was confusing. I think that also added to it. Like, I saw a lot of people I was online and following a lot of people, and people are like, "I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening." And I think that
It's true.
that kinda added to, like, like, "Where's my team pick? And what do we do?" Like, you know what I mean? And,
Hmm.
that was, so I'm sure they didn't do that by design for it to be confusing like that. The
Very true.
second pick, that was also kinda that was weird when that was kinda like some box camera work. I don't know what was going on there, like, what they were trying to
Right.
do with that, with the second pick, but, um, no, I mean, it was different, and, I think the league, it's good for the league when they try, like the NHL's in a position, I think, too, where, like, they should try things like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I thought it
All right.
was, entertaining for sure.
So they're gonna pick at 6.
6, yes.
Talk to me where your head's at in terms of like the prospects that, like, obviously you got the it's very, from everything that I'm seeing, right? It's very tiered, right?
Mhm.
You've got two guys at the top, right? You've got Schiffer and Miss at the top, and then there's like another group of 4 guys, and then there's a bigger group after 6.
Yeah. It's it's interesting because for the Flyers falling to 6, also, what was it? I think, was it, Nashville and Utah jumped them, I think were the teams that
Yeah, I
jumped,
believe so.
and, that's kind of interesting because those teams were not. They were behind them, you know, in projections, so it kinda changes how, you know, who may potentially be available for the Flyers. I still think from a value standpoint, they're gonna get a pretty good player.
Yeah,
I also think as well, there's a chance for them to land, uh, they'll still be able to land if they're looking middle of the ice in a centerman,
right.
there's gonna be some really good ones available,
Very true.
whether they're picking at 4 or 6. But the real wild card, I think, in it is that Nashville and Utah jumped them, and they were not there before. So I'm not necessarily sure for a team like Utah, for example, like maybe they're looking center, but I'm not really sure. You know what I mean? They already have Logan Cooley as like their 1C of the present and future. He's a lotto pick and a very, very good player.
Right.
Um, did they go middle of the ice again? I'm not really sure. Nashville kind of, you know, Nashville was supposed to be good this year and they weren't, you know, so
Yeah.
uh, I'm not really sure what happens there. Like, they're a team that historically prioritize defense and things like that,
Right.
but um, I'm uh, I'm not really sure, you know, how that's going to play out. But I think from a value standpoint, the Flyers from 4 to 6, it's disappointing, but they should still kind of get a pretty good. They should get what they need is in addition to it being the best player available.
Right. Because from the group that you're looking at, right? There are going to be. I'm looking at it. 1, 2, 3, 4. In the top 8, there's 5 centers that are listed.
Yeah,
If you want a center, you're going to have you're going to be able to have the opportunity to get at least one of those guys, because you can take Sheffer off the list, right? You can take Misa off the list, right? In that next group, there's a decent crop of guys. Now, knowing that they have 2 picks later on in the first round,
mhm.
is there any way that you think that they package those 2 later picks, one of those 2 later picks, both of them,
Mhm.
with the 6th pick, to jump anybody, to get into to get to 2, to get Misa, to get somebody that they're like, this guy is worth getting,
Yeah, you know, it's in an ideal world, I think they would like to. Um,
right?
you know, and I think it's just so like the Islanders won the lottery and the
I got a
big
conspiracy theory on that too.
okay, yeah. Um Yeah, like the Islanders winning the lottery was like one of these things too. There was this debate around like Schaefer's, I think, unanimously the first
Number one.
overall.
Yeah.
Prior to this, like if you go back months or maybe even last year, a lot of people were saying James Higgins is the guy.
Right.
Higgins is
Out of Boston
also
College, right?
yeah, and he's also a local there. Like he's a Long Island kid, so everybody's like, this is like they're not gonna not take Schaefer. But there's a little part of me that's like, what if they do the hometown kid thing? Do you play around with that if it's the first overall pick? I'm not really sure. Like, um, maybe they try to like get back in, but I think it's so hard. Like the top three, like we always talk about it every year, but I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember times where like teams like leap into the top three in the NHL like via trade or something like that. I'm trying to think of a time, and it's eluding me right now. But
Yeah.
I
I mean,
like,
just the like from a where they are kind of perspective, right?
mhm,
Knowing that they're yes, they do need to build a wealth of talent in order to keep pushing this thing forward. But like, is that best served by having three guys that might be good,
mhm,
or saying we just want one guy that's absolutely elite?
yeah, yeah. That's
And
something they're gonna have to think about for sure. I mean,
most definitely. But I look at that and I go, like, is one of those two guys essentially worth 3 first-round picks?
mhm, mhm,
And then I look at it and go, okay, well, like you're also going to get three out of the you're going to get three guys in the first round. That's and I could also see them, right, if they just sit there and pick at 6, maybe packaging those 2 picks in the 20s to jump back into the middle of the first round
mhm,
and maybe taking a guy that they like there, right? Maybe
yeah,
one guy in the teens is better than two guys in the late 20s.
right. Yeah, I think that might be more. I could see them doing that. At least, or in another scenario where maybe they try to trade. They also have like 4 second rounders or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Um, so maybe they package the late first and a couple of the seconds to kind of get some help for the team today. I could see a scenario where that happens. They keep the first two, and then they deal some of that later draft capital to try to get a player, maybe a centerman that's going to help the team this season, this upcoming season. I think that's possible too. Um,
Yeah, Mark, as
but
I'm looking at it right now, they own 11 picks in this draft.
11, yeah.
So you've got your own, right? You've got the 3 firsts, right? You're gonna have Colorado and Edmonton, and then you're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4 second, right? You got the 4 second-round picks. You've got your own third. You've got 2 5s, and then your own sixth.
Mhm.
So you're going to have ammunition. If you want to play around, you want to move around, if there's a guy that you really like, you're going to have
Yeah.
that opportunity to be able to go out and get him.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think like they're gonna try to do both. I really do this summer. And yeah, like I don't know, like with this sixth pick, like I said, like I think the value's similar. I'm a really big proponent of like Anton Frundell from Sweden. I may have said on a previous show, I may have
Mhm.
mentioned his name. He's the top international skater in the draft. I don't even know if he's 18 yet. He might still be 17. He played against men last year in the second tier Swedish league. Really, really talented kid. Centerman. I think he could play wing as well, or he primarily may
He
have
has
played
not he
wing.
has not turned 19 yet.
Yeah. So he's still very young and very talented. And I think about like a stylistic fit with like potentially him and Michkov playing together and how like
Mhm.
scary that could be for a team. Um, and so he's kind of my guy right now. I kind of have tunnel vision on him as like the
Okay.
player that I want. But Caleb Denoye, who's another one. His
Yeah.
name's he's kind of moved up draft boards. Um, and his brother's in the Flyer system, so they already
Mhm.
kind of have some probably intel there. His brother plays for the Phantoms in the
Yeah,
AHL, so um, he's another one. And then there's other guys like there's some like if you want to take like a big home run swing, like there's like Roger McQueen, even though he's had some back
he
problems, huge
he
mammoth
he's the guy
back.
that I was looking at, like,
Yeah,
purely just for the name, right? The name, like, automatically jumps off the board for you, right? But I think, from a size and age perspective, right? You're going to get a guy who hasn't turned 20 yet. You're going to get a guy with size at 6'5", in the 195 range, um, and a guy that can play forward, that can play maybe on the same, maybe not, maybe on the same line with Mitchkov, right? Like, I think they're where they attack the center position. I think they do that in two phases this summer, right? I think they do that. One, I think this sixth pick in the draft is probably going to be a center, and then I think, and we'll talk about the coach in a minute, but I think they also attack that in free agency
mhm.
to get somebody
Yeah.
here to kind of pair to help the progression of Mitchkov, to build that momentum, because I really feel like you had a really productive, right, 60 plus point season in a year where the guys that he was playing with were really not taking advantage of the opportunities that they were kind of given by playing with him.
Right. And I think like too, the draft is where you're gonna like really solve the future, the future like, line mate of Michkov kind of thing. I think
Mhm.
the free agency element or trade element of it this year, I definitely think they're going to be active. But I believe it was on a Nasty Knuckles episode with Riley Cote and Derek Settlemeyer on their podcast. I think they had Mark Craig on, who I think is one of their scouts, the Flyers scouts, not that long ago, and they had the conversation of like when it comes to like first line centers, like how many true number one centermen are there in the league versus
Mhm.
teams that are using guys as a first line center? Is that player truly a first line center? Like there's only like a couple elite all situations first line centermen. And that was something that I had not really considered prior to that. And
Okay.
it's a really good point when, you know, maybe in terms of building a team, if you have like really, really talented wingers like the Flyers kind of do with Michkov, Konechny had a nice year this year.
Mhm.
Um, you look at like these like really high end wingers, maybe you can get away with, you know, putting guys, putting two centermen who are kind of just like maybe ideally they're both like second line centers, but they level up
Yeah.
because they're playing with elite wingers. You know what I mean? Like, because guys like Michkov and all, they definitely make players, they make guys around them better. So
Most definitely.
that's something that I hadn't really considered before, but I think it's a really, when you take a step back from it and you kind of like weigh when you look at everything, you look at the big picture, that's something that's really interesting and very it's a really well thought out like I think philosophy in terms of like, yeah, you know what, there's really not that many. We harp on the 1C thing, but
Yeah.
maybe they can take a really good player maybe in free agency that isn't necessarily a first line center, but he like fits like a
Can be
glove.
better with them if he's better than what they had,
Yeah,
then
right,
that, yeah, you're not picking up a guy. I think it'd be foolishly optimistic to think that they're going to pick up a guy that's going to be here long term, right?
right,
But like a guy that can be better and maybe take advantage of some of those opportunities of what they're doing on and off, the ice. I I think you have to, right? And I
right.
think that, kind of thinking about the goalie situation in the same vein, right? Like anything's going to be better than what you put out there this year.
Yeah,
So like getting something that is like mildly productive, like you have said a million times, like if they had average goalie play,
Yeah.
they're probably at least competing for a playoff spot late in the season.
Yeah.
I mean, they just that lack of goalie play really made them almost non-competitive.
Yeah. Yeah. It sunk a lot of really games that I think were winnable or could have been winnable throughout the year.
Yeah,
I think you can look back on it. Oh, maybe if we got a save here or there, would have been different. But I mean, the numbers back that up. I mean, the Flyers goaltending's been atrocious here the last couple of years, and
Mark, you're being kind.
yeah. So there that's another thing. I mean, like that's a position that's probably going to have to come through trade. I don't really know how that's going to shape out because free agency is like a barren wasteland for goalies. You're
Yeah,
really not adding anybody who, like from a statistical perspective, is giving you much of an upgrade on paper. So that's probably going to have to
Mark,
come through trade.
they got to hold down the fort until the Russian wonderkin
Yeah,
comes over.
yeah,
Until you can get Igor Zavgragin.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, he's probably from everything that I read here, it's like 2-ish years away, probably.
probably. Yeah, I think like on the safe side, probably 2 years. Um, I don't. Usually, you kind of like before guys come, you hear like there's usually stuff out there that they have their eyes on North America. We haven't really heard that with him yet, so I'm assuming 2 years would be on the safe side for him,
Yeah,
um, and even then, I mean, like you don't necessarily know what you're getting, even though they might
right.
be playing well over there in the KHL. Until they get here and you get them behind your team, you don't know for sure. But he's the one. I
Very
mean,
true.
I think he's the one in the system right now. But I'd expect them maybe later in the
Yeah,
draft to look at some goaltending. I think it's wise to just draft a couple each year.
I was
You
gonna
know.
say every year you take one or two and you put them in the pipeline and you see what ends up happening.
Yeah.
But I think you know to look at their picks that are when they pick in trying to hold on one second, I clicked on the wrong thing. When you look at when they pick, they're going to pick at 23 and then again at 30.
Mhm.
Talk to me about is at that part of the draft, is it already just best player available? Like just take
Yeah.
whatever guys at the top of your board, you just take that guy.
Yeah. I think that's probably where you would do that. This year I think is kind of you hear varying things, right? Like I think a couple years ago people would have had the 25 draft. People thought it was going to be a better draft than it was, and then you look at where it is now. Um I don't know that people that like are like super into like players at that level like see it as like a deep draft. Um, so maybe I would think you would, if you're the Flyers, you start taking like some swings on some guys, like some high upside guys that maybe they're far from complete products, but they're
Most definitely.
if they put it together. I think often the Flyers tend to go safer later in drafts, like
Okay.
guys that look like they're going to project out as like third or fourth line guys that they know are going to play pro. Um, which, like, I mean, who's to say that's like a bad philosophy, right?
Right.
On it, I'm not really, you know, uh, doubting their mindset there, but I think,
Yeah. I think the
like,
position that
I
you're in right now with the draft, it's like you have that opportunity to be able to be like, all right, well, we're going to pick at 23, we're going to pick at 30, we're going to pick again at 36, we're going to pick at 40, we're going to pick at 45, like
yeah,
45, 48. Like you have the opportunity, right? If you want to package, like we were talking about earlier, you want to package some of those. If there's a guy that you really like in the teens,
mhm,
you have the flexibility right there. But you also, I think, the stage that their franchise is in, your last kind of thought process of like just take some swings. Like what is the harm in like guys that could potentially have huge upside, because we see it all the time that guys that are drafted later on in the draft that develop that you take a young kid who develops later.
Mm-hmm.
The only way that you're going to get opportunities to get stars, guys that could potentially turn into stars, because we can talk about it after we talk about Rick Tocchet, but like the way that this coach or the way that this playoffs has played out tells you that like you need guys that are going to show up every night in the
Sure.
playoffs.
Sure. And like that's kind of like the whole, I think it's a good point, Don, like about looking at a guy like McQueen, potentially at 6, depending on how the first 5 picks play out. It's
True.
like he's had some back problems, and that's scary, right? He didn't play a lot this year, but I think everybody believes that like when he's healthy and he's right, he's an absolute monster. And at that size and that skill level, he could be like a real dynamic player. It's just, can he stay healthy? Can there, I don't think anybody's really doubting the upside. Um, is it too early to take a swing like that? I don't know, but I mean, he's projected to go in that area. So I don't, if you like him a little bit better than a player or two ahead of him, like or projected to go ahead of him on like the public draft boards. I mean, they have these teams have litany of guys lined up that watch these guys all year. So you know, I'm okay with that. It's not like I'm okay with them taking a swing like that, rather. So,
Right.
Because like you said, I mean, like, um, if you're going to push something to the next level here, you're going to need to get some luck there. And
Very much.
uh, there is a little bit of an element of guesswork when it comes to that, obviously, no matter how much you know or watch about these kids. So, if you're really bullish on a player like McQueen, why not? Take the swing. What's the worst that can happen? If he puts it all together, you got this like 6'5", you know,
Mm-hmm.
animal of a center down the middle,
Right.
uh, and yeah, I mean, it's like why not? So I'm open to
Yeah.
that. I'm open to some swings here in this draft. So I would like to see them do that.
Listen, Mark, I'm a complete sizist. Like, give me guys that are huge.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like outside of like looking at skills, like
yeah.
when you see a guy who's 6'6", 195, or the Russian D guy Radom, I can't remember it, Mertka, something like that.
Yeah,
Does that
yeah,
sound?
something. Yeah,
So, 6'6", 200. Like I'm a size guy.
yeah,
The size numbers jump off the board. Now I've been bitten on that.
yeah.
Doesn't stop me. I'm
No.
still going. If I'm going to take a big swing, I'm going to take a big swing on guys that that have the big stats first.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, they if all things are equal, right? Like if all skills are equal, or you view all skills as equal, and there's a player that's 5'11" versus a guy that's 6'5". I mean, you're always going to take the guy that's 6'5". You know what I mean? Like, um, if you don't see that much of a deviation from like their skills, it's like you're always going
right,
to lean. I
especially in this town, Mark.
yeah, yeah,
Right, size matters.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
And so now coming out of like right, so we know where they're picking. We know the kind of the area that they're going to target. News drops earlier, a couple days ago, that they're going to bring on Rick Tocchet.
Hmm.
Now, Rick Tocchet was a guy that we talked about, a guy who's, for me, nostalgic because it's a guy that I grew up watching.
Hmm.
Um, I'm sure that the number 22 jerseys are going to be in full force down at the. Well, now it's not what's it? It's the Xfinity. I don't even know
Yeah,
what the new name is. The
Xfinity
Xfinity Center, something.
Xfinity Mobile Arena or something. It
It's,
sucks. Man.
it's too much. Just call it the X and just be done.
Yeah.
Right, but like, so I know that it's a polarizing choice
Mhm.
because it's a guy that you bring in that has a lot of history. you're pairing him with two other former Flyers. The conversation around the good old boys of just recycling old Flyers back into
Mhm.
different positions. I think that as much as people wanted to bring in just somebody from outside the organization, if they did their due diligence on this one, and that was the guy that they came up with, I'm okay with it.
Mhm.
And I think there was a comment that came out of the press conference that kind of rang true to like the fact that there are agents, players that have already shown interest in playing here because he's here is a big factor that I don't think a lot of people are talking about.
Yeah, you're right. You're definitely right. That's one of the things I think that also stuck out to me as well. On is with the press conference yesterday, was Briere saying that uh, I've never seen maybe there has been, but I can't remember a coach that has had more kind of like how fans view them and how people in the league view him are like night and day. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think we're looking at like I know a lot of people, and I'm not saying that that's not important. It definitely is. They look at um, past successes and failures, and Talk has had not a great track record in the wins and losses category since he's coached in the league. Um,
No, I mean you're looking at a guy who's got 286 wins and 265 losses in the
mhm,
regular season. He's 11-11 in the playoffs. Right,
yeah.
he doesn't have a good track record of advancing teams when they're in the playoffs. Um, I mean, I would argue with you that like the opportunities to coach really good teams hasn't also been there.
Yeah, and not this past year, but the year before that. I mean, he won the Jack Adams Trophy for best coach in the league, and
Right.
coached the Canucks team that I think surprised a lot of people with how well they played. I know a lot of statistical, um, I know a lot of people that are really into the numbers were saying that like that Canucks team was bound for regression in terms of how I think a lot of the shooting percentages and things like that were through the roof. It was like
Right.
I don't know if anybody thought they'd be as bad as they were this past year, and there seemed to be a lot of drama there as well
True.
in Vancouver. And
As I say,
but
there was a lot of locker room drama. There's a lot of
yes,
off the ice drama that like
uh,
you could see that the kind of writing was on the wall.
yeah, yeah, and so. But I think like when you look around the league and you hear players that have played for him or were a part of teams where he was on the coaching staff, they love him. Um, Quinn Hughes
Right.
was who's one of the best offensive defensemen in the league. Um, was very very vocal about wanting him back. Um, and in Vancouver, and
Right.
said how much he had learned from him and enjoyed playing for him. Sidney Crosby, when Talk was in Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
apparently has nothing but positive experiences with Talk. I think too, like from a perspective of like people that believe that this is very very similar to like a Tortorella hire. Um, the only difference is that Talk seems to be a much better communicator and able to. He seems to like. There was another comment he made where he had mentioned about like kind of dealing with younger players, and his answer I thought was a good answer, and I can't remember exactly what he had said, but it was very. He gets it. I think he gets it. He gets the modern player. He gets the younger players, and
I heard someone talking about the fact that like the difference between him and Tortorella is that like if he has an issue with a player, he'll go and talk to the player and kind of
mhm,
work the issue with the player. Where
yeah.
Tortorella almost took it as like a punitive, like I'm gonna teach you this lesson by being punitive rather than being it's like punitive versus productive. right?
Right.
Rick Tocchet seems to take a more productive, like, how do we fix this and make it right, versus like, I'm gonna gaslight you and and teach you some lesson by putting you up in the press box for 2 days.
Right. Right. And Talk had said too, where you know with that kind of thing, with the communication element of it, uh, it's a really important it's an important piece, and I think that's something where being a former player and
Right,
also a good one. Taka was a terrific player in his prime. Um, you knew how you enjoyed like being coached, and you can kind of like impart some of that, or kind of build some of that into your coaching philosophy because you were a player once. And I think that's where that's actually like a positive experience. Um, is that like that's actually where being like a former player and things like that actually give you an
mm-hmm.
advantage. Um, and especially if you were the type of player that really harped on and wanted your coach to communicate with you. Um,
Right,
so he wasn't, Talk wasn't my first choice for the job, but it really wasn't a former Flyer thing. I've said this on other shows and things like that, where I think if you've done anything worth note or worthwhile, um, you have a lot of connections,
right, yeah,
and you know, I don't see that as like necessarily a negative or a drawback. But if you want to argue and if you want to argue the point that like, well, he hasn't really have much success in the past, and that could be a precursor to the not having much success in the present and future.
right,
I mean, like, I'm not going to tell anybody that they're wrong about that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. No, I hear you.
your record is what your record is, but um, I think too, like try to get him. They're going to try to get him some immediate help, and we'll see this summer whether it comes in trade or free agency. I think there's um there's some players out there I think that have played for him too in the past that are also free agents.
Right.
So if he has like
And
a
I
positive,
think that's that to me the biggest takeaway out of
mhm,
all of this was that at this stage of where they are, they know that they need a better quality of like baseline player.
mhm,
They know that Rick Tocchet is not coming here and bringing in like a number one top of the free agent class.
yeah,
But they know that he's also his coaching style is going to attract a higher quality of a player. And I
mhm,
think for this organization to continue to progress to where some of these teams are in the playoffs, as we're seeing, the quality of play is 2, 3, 4 levels away from where this team is playing right now.
mhm,
Um, at every phase, right?
mhm,
5-on-5, but like power play, and like you name it, there's a lot of room for this team to grow. And I think for this stage, like, do I think Rick Tocchet's going to be here for the next 15 years? No, I don't. That's not how hockey coaches work, right? They get
yeah,
recycled every 3, 4, 5 years.
yeah,
Um, but I think he has an opportunity for this phase of this team. I think it's not the worst thing that could happen, right?
yeah,
Like, I know that there
yeah,
was a lot of conversation around the coach from, was it Western Michigan?
yes, yep,
I don't know if that's the right guy right now. I think
mm,
that like could that be the right guy 3, 4 years from now? Yeah, maybe. Right? If this team's on the verge of like making the playoffs and being competitive and they need something to push them over the edge and the coach is the guy. But listen, if this team is on the verge of making the playoffs and being competitive and Rick Tocchet is the guy doing it, then maybe he like it's it's a crapshoot either way. Like
mhm,
like like we saw what happened when we brought in Haxtell. Right, Haxtell was not a an old Flyers guy. He was a guy that came out of college that had a little bit. He had the success at the different levels. I don't know,
yeah,
like it.
mm,
Like if you're complaining about this right now, like you're screaming into the wind, like
yeah,
and I don't know why.
Yeah. It's, I think people look at like you know, I'd look at it like this, where if you're like into like film or movies or anything like that, and like how like these big budget like superhero films and all get put together and stuff,
Right.
it's like you look at it and really, and not even just that, but like any kind of like blockbuster kind of movie, like directors and people like that, they go back to things that they know. You know what I mean? Like they go back to actors and actresses that they worked with in the past, and
Hmm.
um and on
Very
different
much so.
projects. And I think that's how sports work too. Where
Very much so.
especially if you have a bad experience with a coach and you feel like your room was just in peril
Right.
and there was tension and animosity between certain guys or whatever, I think you're more likely to go back to what you've gone to in the past, because you know that that works. You know
Right.
what I mean? And um so
I also don't think they want this to spiral. Right.
no.
Like they're trying to keep this train moving forward. Right. And
Right.
I think Rick Tocchet at this stage can attract players that can help them kind of
Right.
keep progressing forward and
Right.
not fall into a year where they regress. And like, because a year ago this time, right, they were almost making the playoffs. They were playing a little bit better, going even though they were making trades at the deadline. So it's like I, I like it.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. I love it, but I understand.
Yeah. I think that's kind of how I think I feel about it right now. And hearing him talk yesterday, I think, and hearing him kind of like impart some a little bit of, like, he's not going to give you everything, but um to kind of impart a little bit of philosophical kind of like how he kind of views this, and he also just got the job, right? So he's
Right.
probably just now kind of getting into the like evaluating what he has, and then it's up to the front office to go out there and kind of add some guys that they think will help that.
Most
um
definitely.
so you know it's still like obviously very early into his hire, but he was very, very sought after too. I mean,
Hmm.
like,
I was just
as
saying
they,
there were at least three other teams.
yeah, and I think it was Elliot Flynn on the 32 Thoughts podcast said that they were actually Taki was actually interviewing teams as much as teams were interviewing him.
Okay.
So I think that goes to show. I mean, also there was also a rumor at one point that he was thinking about going back to TV and being like an
Okay.
analyst. So it was very clear that he had plenty of options, and he didn't have to pick any job that he didn't want. So um,
All right.
that's also a positive. I think after last year and things kind of going the way they did, and then the coach, telling the media after a rough loss that he didn't really want to coach here or coach in this type of season. I think
Mark,
knowing,
like on the way out the door, I still
yeah,
can't believe that was like that those words came out of his mouth is like something I'll just like
I sent the
I'll never understand.
I sent the clip to some of my buddies that are hockey fans, and I was like, did he just quit? Like, it's like I had
I
never
mean,
seen anything like that.
literally looked like it. It was
Yeah,
wild.
I was like, did he just quit the job? Like, and then like a day or two later, they let him go. So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, so I think that's also something. A part
Yeah.
of it is like having somebody who's like willing to tackle this, and
Right.
nobody's convincing anybody that the Flyers are ready to win a cup this year or anything like that.
No.
So I mean, he knows what he's getting into, um, and he has long time standing with the organization. After that,
Yeah,
I'm a
it's
book.
full. It's a full circle event, right?
Yeah,
So hopefully, I'm still going into these seasons until this wave really starts to turn towards the coast. I'm really just kind of going into this next like every part of this off season, every part of like getting ready for next season is really just like orange Kool-Aid glass
yeah,
completely full, Like I'm good. I'm good with whatever choices they make because I'm looking at it like, and not from like a completely oblivious perspective, but like I'm curious to see the choices that they make and how they help to push this forward, because I don't see them making like catastrophic choices. Like I
Right.
don't see them like going completely off the rails and picking a guy that was coaching South Jersey high school hockey, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't see them picking a guy at 6 that was projected at 45.
Yeah.
They're making choices that are well within the range
Right.
of being able to make this kind of move forward. So
Mhm.
listen. On that note, we'll be back in like I don't know 37 seconds. Coming back talking all things Sixers. So don't forget to just hang out for 37 seconds, and we'll be right back. But on the way out, Mark, go Flyers.
Go Flyers.
We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball. Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup.
For the lead. Yes! Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Oh, we're drunk on the court now, but it's a nice Saturday morning talking. We'll talk some all things Sixers. We got a lot of good things to talk about. Mark, just give a shout out to our sponsor again for Philly drinkers for their very generous welcome package of giving us an opportunity to get some gear. If you have not gone over to check their stuff out, they got some really cool stuff. I know Rich got a shirt that said "Hit That John." I picked up it says Philadelphia Eagles,
Nice.
but it's like a sweatshirt blanket. Joe got a Philly drinkers trucker hat. They got some really cool stuff. They got some travel mugs. Use the code DrunkOnBraw15. Get your 15% off. We get a little kickback. It's okay. You can support us.
Yeah.
And then you get to rock some really, really cool stuff. So go check them out.
Yeah.
But
do it right now.
Mark, before right now. I mean,
Right.
hit pause, don't hit pause. Don't go away, right? But bookmark that website, go back.
Yeah.
But we've been doing this a really long time, Mark. You took a sip of coffee. Mark, put your mug up. Are we drinking out of the same coffee mug?
I think this is different. This is
it looks
it's close. It's
pretty close. The font's the same.
The same, yeah.
All right. It's pretty close.
Yeah.
It's when the mugs look the same and it's not coordinated.
Yep. Yeah, we did. It's because it's early. Like we do the morning skate for the Flyers. I think we should call this the shoot around.
The shoot around.
In the morning. Coming to the gym and definitely need the coffee. But I'm excited. I'm excited about the Sixers and
listen now. I didn't get a chance to talk about my conspiracy theory with the Flyers with the
Oh
draft
yeah.
and the Islanders losing the All-Star game the day before, and then coincidentally they get the number one pick when they have the really low percentage. Now, the NBA, I heard Dom on the Fired Up show talking about his chat GBT searches on whether or not which league is more scripted, the WWE or the NBA,
Yeah, I heard that too.
right? Like when you look at the Mavs have the 1.5%. They trade Luka to the Lakers when it makes absolutely no sense to do so,
Yeah.
to get back an aging, injured Anthony Davis. And then they get the number one pick
Mm-hmm.
when you got a 1.5% chance of getting the pick. And it just so happens that there's a generational talent.
Mm.
It's becoming really, really difficult to not think that in some way, shape, or form, right? The Pelicans get the number one pick right after they lose a star. You could go back, and the conspiracy theories about the number one picks and when, right, like LeBron goes to Cleveland,
Yeah. Hometown
kid, right? Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the Mavs are picking number one. And also, right, they played, correct me if I'm wrong, but they played in like that play-in,
I think they did. Yeah.
right? Like and part of my ignorance, but like they market those play-in games as playoff games.
Yes. Yes.
They're part of the NBA playoffs,
Uh-huh.
but they can still end up in the draft lottery. Like that, like
Mm-hmm.
none
Yeah.
of it, like it's
I'm not
frustrating. None of it makes a whole lot of sense.
I'm not gonna sit here and say that there's a conspiracy at work here, but there's a lot of evidence. And
You're not lying.
I know where you're coming from. I believe you. I believe you, Todd. I think it's, man, like if I was if I swear to God, like if I was an executive, if I was someone who had like I was invested like financially in like a team like the Utah Jazz, for example,
Mm-hmm.
or the Wizards,
Wizards, right?
I would be going to Adam Silver and the NBA like executives, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna next year in 26, we are gonna be so bad that
Like embarrassingly bad.
we're gonna embarrass the league. Like we're gonna win 5 games. Like I'm gonna dress a G League roster and make sure that you guys make this right, because what is this? Like don't like
Right.
I think I would be angry if I was one of those teams. And it's like, well, this is how the lottery shakes out, and it's like, come on, man. They just
And the
anytime
fact that the Spurs also get the number 2 pick.
yeah, right. And they also had, right, like they had some terrible luck with Wemby and those guys. But now it's like everybody's like, how are they gonna like, when we got drafted by the Spurs, everybody was like, how are they gonna like build this thing around them? Now they have the opportunity to put like a really, really gifted guard with him. And
Right.
you think
Or
about
they
like,
have the opportunity to package that pick and trade for Giannis and pair Giannis with Wemby.
oh Jesus. That just seems
Giannis is now trying to get out of Milwaukee. Like,
it's gonna look like if they trade for Giannis, it's gonna look like, you ever see the clips from like back in like the 50s with like Russell and Wilt just like punching everybody's shots everywhere? That's what it's gonna look like.
yeah,
Giannis,
I'm
and Wemby.
actually I'm here for it because
How do you
the
get to the rim against these guys? Like,
you want to go back another conspiracy theory with the number 1 pick
yeah,
when the Spurs get Tim Duncan, when they have that 1 year where David Robinson gets injured.
mm,
And then they have the opportunity to draft Tim Duncan, and they paired Tim Duncan with David Robinson for the next eternity of play.
like I said, I'm not gonna say But
saying, but I'm not saying.
there's a lot of evidence. There's a lot of evidence, Interesting
Adam
how it
Silver
works
just
out.
seems like a really like sleazy, sneaky, creepy, and he has run that league into the ground.
Yeah, yeah.
They might as well just skip the regular season and just like play 20 games,
Yeah.
playoffs done. Because the playoff basketball is not nearly as unwatchable
No.
as the regular season. The regular season is, I mean, we've said it a bunch, but it's literally like it's an 82 game preseason.
Yeah, it's a slog. It's a slog. And I've really enjoyed like the NBA playoffs because we said last
Very
time on
much.
this show, I think the playoffs were just beginning. And we were talking about all the potential matchups and things like that. We were going to get to see some teams that put together some good years that like I was really impressed. Like even though they didn't win, I thought the Rockets really did a nice job in that
Yeah,
Warriors series. They got to feel good about where they're headed.
most definitely.
Um, you know, and then if you're staying out west, right? You got like Ant taking down all the legends in Minnesota, which is
Yeah.
awesome. And
And like, I love that it's new, right?
right.
Like you're seeing OKC play really well, right?
Mhm.
That series with Denver has been like really really good.
Mhm.
Russell Westbrook having a resurgence
Yeah.
in the role that he's playing for that team, which is like really interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Seeing OKC really get pushed after they had a pretty dominant, regular season.
Mhm.
But you got the Timberwolves already wrapping up and waiting on the other side of that Western Conference.
Mhm.
It's
And
and
yeah,
then you see in the East, right? The Knicks advanced last night. You got I'm trying to look at the bracket, right? And then you got that
Pacers.
series with the Pacers is going to kick off on Wednesday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like, the NBA, if the NBA gets what it wants, right? I'm sure they'll have the Knicks
Ugh.
in the finals,
Yeah.
right? That conspiracy theory is already out. Um, I would love nothing more. Like seeing them take Boston out was fabulous.
Yes, that was nice.
It felt really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
After the
It did.
season that we had, it kind of felt really good to see Boston kind of like
It did. Prayers up
go
to
down.
Jason Tatum though. I feel really awful for him
That
and
I will never root for a guy to get
no.
injured. And he is
No.
a fabulous player. It
Great
just sucks
guy.
that we had the opportunity to draft him and we drafted thoracic outlet syndrome. Um, but like, and the sucks that like he's going to be out all next year too. Like you're going to
Yeah.
miss him for the entire, like the fact that it happens at the end of the year and he's going
Mhm.
to miss what will probably be the entire next season is like, it sucks because
Yeah.
he's good for basketball.
He is. And it's one of those things where like with him with the Celtics, it's like as a Sixers fan and a Philadelphia guy, I can't root for the Celtics, but I really, really love that kid. And I think he's a great player and a great
Mark,
person
how
off the
great would
court.
he have been here?
Oh, the people would have fell in love with him here, I think.
Like
Like,
he could have owned this city.
yeah,
He could, because he is like, I'm gonna dig in you all day. And then
yeah.
I'm like, and we saw that. We
Hmm.
saw that in that game 7 when he was awful for 3.5 quarters.
Hmm.
And he had 6 minutes where he just dominated.
And the
Like,
thing that was one like really incredible about that game, Don, was like, if you remember, his confidence never wavered or anything like
no,
that. He
he
just
just kept
stuck
shooting.
with it. Hmm. Yeah,
Like he
yeah.
would have been perfect in the city.
I
And now
agree.
you're like, you saw another guy in that series, right? In Bridges,
Hmm.
who they had for about a half hour,
Yep.
who also, right, was in the building. You signed, sealed, delivered.
Yeah, he was here.
Who
He
would
was
have been
going to be.
who would have been a perfect addition alongside Joel and Ben at that moment?
Hmm. Yep.
So like seeing all the former Sixers
Yeah.
flourish has been borderline painful. But I like that it's new. I like that
Yeah,
it's fresh. I'm really curious to see how this game 7 plays out tomorrow
yeah,
with OKC and Denver.
yeah,
But like something about Minnesota, I love Anthony Edwards. He's like a stick and click player for me.
yeah.
Like
He is.
if I'm just scrolling through and they're playing, I'll sit there and watch it for a couple minutes. He's just he's another guy who's like was like undercover really good in college and then just like got to the NBA and just like was like, all right,
Yeah,
I'm gonna take over.
yeah. He has the um like he has that like you can't teach it, but I think he has that like killer instinct thing about him where he doesn't care who he's playing or anything like that. He thinks he's the best. And I think it's like, and we're going to probably get into it with the draft and stuff and the Sixers and how things played out. Because there are some points I want to make about some of these
Mhm.
young kids that we're talking about for this year's draft. But
Yeah,
um, you know, it's a tough one to straddle, right? Like where are you confident or are you arrogant? And I think he kind of straddles that well where he
oh
absolutely
yeah.
believes in his heart that he is the best player on the floor all the time. And
There's no doubt in my mind that he stepped on the floor and he knows that he's put in the work to be the best player and
yeah.
that I'm just going to go out and show you every night that I'm
Mhm.
going to be the best player and I'm going to dominate, right? And he did that with with that series in Golden State. Seemed like it was never in peril.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
They
when
just
you beat them 4 games to 1 and you beat them the way that you did,
yeah.
like
And he
they're gonna be the underdog
yeah.
when whoever they play, whether it's OKC or Denver, they're going to be the team that people are doubting. And there's another guy on that team that's in that kind of same position, right? Julius Randle's a guy who kind of
Yes.
got cast off from the Knicks. Be nice to see them match up against the Knicks and him have an opportunity to really kind of stick it to him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're very Randall was always somebody, right? Like around the league and stuff. I mean, always good, always like you
Right?
knew what you were gonna get from Julius Randle. And
And he bounced around a little bit.
he's bounced around. Yeah. He's bounced around the league and but he was like no matter where he ended up, I feel like, he just had that I don't know what he's averaging right now, but I feel like it's always like hovering around 18, 19. He's gonna like he's going to be tough on the interior and on the glass and things like that. And you just know what you're getting. He was a good fit. He was a good pickup for Minnesota. He kind of gives them some of that grit, that sandpaper that you
Mm-hmm.
want in the postseason. And he was a good fit for them, I think, So, no, I mean, the
Like
playoffs have been fun.
I love the word play. The sandpaper that you need in the playoffs. That's got to end. That's got to end up in an article at some point.
Yeah, I'll have to add it now. I'll make a note.
That's got to be in the. It's got to go in the archives of like go to. I love that.
Yep.
That's solid right there. But this is exciting, right?
Hmm?
Looking at the
Yes.
playoffs and looking at how these teams playing. You know, I can watch this style of basketball. I can watch. It does bother me that the Sixers aren't in it, right? Because when the last couple times that they played in the playoffs, the series they never worked out the way that we wanted them to. But they were good. It was good basketball to watch. I
Mhm.
just the dynamics of this team and the way that it's set up right now. I'm fearful that we're kind of on the verge of like semi starting over again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard.
Because I feel like you're at some point in time they're going to have to make a decision about Joel. At some
Yeah.
point in time we have to acknowledge the fact that PG came here for the money and he wants to be on the West Coast and see I mean you're never going to get equal value in return.
Right.
But you got to get something.
Hmm. Yeah. It's tough. It's a tough spot to be in. I mean, we've said that for several weeks now, going back like the last few shows, I think, Don, like where, you know, they're really they're hung up, I think, there's not a lot you can do with the Joel thing until you get more clarity on his medical situation and, you know, what is that going to look like when he comes back? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And, um, the PG thing, same thing, like, I mean, it's as far as not the medical history, but like it was a really kind of underwhelming year here,
Yeah.
for him when he did play. And, so, and then there was some bad luck going in there. I think, McCain missing, he looked so promising in the beginning of the year, probably a
Yeah.
rookie of the year candidate. That would have at least been something to look forward to had he stayed healthy all year. And,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, the thing that, like, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but I mean, like the pick being in rumors, the third overall pick being in like some of these rumors about the Sixers looking to, part of me gets it. Part of me feels like, you know what? If you deal the pick, you get something now and you think like you're going to try to compete this year. If it
Right.
blows up in your face another year, it's like, well, who cares? Like, you're going to be so bad at that point anyway. It's like you're looking at starting over regardless, and you're going to trade guys for, underwhelming returns just to get out of the deals.
Right.
So you could create the flexibility with the cap space and whatever. So, like, part of me gets that, but then, like, it's also at the same time, you're going to want to, like, start to, like, maybe you can more naturally move away from the
Sure.
PG Joel thing if you have Maxie McCain and another young piece. At least
Sure.
that's like your foundation moving forward. And it's just a matter of kind of like gaining more cap flexibility when that time comes. There is a pathway. It's a difficult one, but I think there is a
Sure.
pathway to move forward with a young core, and let's see where that goes. If it snaps together, then that's great. But there's a lot of question marks as of like May. There's so many question marks
There
about
is.
some guys that are like really high price guys that we're gonna need some clarity on here. Like,
Yeah, and I think that's the hardest part, right?
yeah,
Like, and when you look at the players that are going to be available, right? You've got, right, like when I look at the top of this draft, right? There's Cooper Flag is going to be the number one pick. Dallas is not moving off of that pick. The Spurs, from everything that they're talking about, seems to be Dylan Harper is the kid that they want to pair with Wemby, which I get.
mhm,
Um, which leaves the Sixers at 3 with a choice with Ace Bailey from Rutgers and VJ Edgecombe from Baylor. Those seem to be like the two guys that seem to be the consensus. Like the decision is going to have to be made between those two guys.
yeah, yeah. That's that's kind of what I was gonna like. Bailey had been a little bit on um the Ace Bailey's been on the internet a little bit about some comments he made about his shooting, because we know that he's not afraid to shoot it and loves
Not at all.
shooting. And
Right?
um,
You're talking about a kid who's 6'10",
yep,
loves to shoot, athletic wing, can get to the rim. He gives them a dynamic that they don't have.
hmm
I Maybe it's the jaded experience of Ben Simmons, but like part of me is a little apprehensive taking a guy who has all the measure, like, as much, right? Remember, I'm a size guy, Mark.
yes,
He's got all the measurables, but you're talking about the comps between him and Ben Simmons in terms of their college production and their college experience. You're taking a guy who was athletically productive, but also in a program that wasn't successful,
hmm
So they got all the opportunities to kind of play together, and they still weren't really good. Part of me is like a little there's a little bit of apprehension there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And am I making this up in my head? Is this something that I'm just like? Am
No,
I?
I don't think so. I think I get the apprehension with Bailey. I think depending on who you are, the program thing is the like lack of success at Rutgers is certainly something. It's something, right? Like I mean, like I don't
Fair.
think anybody would, even teams that even players that were great players, that turned out to be in some cases legendary players. I think about like Steph at Davidson and things like that, where like at least those teams were in the tournament. Remember, like you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
Steph was playing in the tournament, even though he was with a
Most definitely.
small school that prior to that was not having. You know, they weren't in the tournament, Davidson, but like there's like it's not like necessarily a precursor to what you're going to do in the next at the next level. Hearing some of the comments that he made about like uh, almost like this shot isn't a bad shot because I work on it, it is not a mentality that I think if you're gonna like
Right.
I get what he's saying. Maybe someone needs to interpret this differently for me, but I felt like that was very if you're coming to the Sixers at third overall, I don't know if we're taking the ball out of Maxey or McCain's hands or
Right.
so you can chuck up 25 shots, you know what I mean? And because you work on it or whatever, but and you don't take a bad shot, it's like that was a little bit it goes to the Ann Edwards point I was making earlier about like, are you like confident or are you arrogant? And that kind of that was kind of like that was kind of teetering on arrogance to me. Um and we know that some guys come into the league and they're scorers like that or they've scored at other levels and that's what they're concerned with. Like they come in and like they think about scoring the basketball and that's it, you know.
Right.
And maybe that was not maybe that didn't come he's also young, maybe that didn't come out the way that he had
Doesn't
anticipated.
come out the way that he's intending it to, but
Right.
at the same time, it does that just kind of piles on for me, and I'm looking at it going, all right, are we looking at just like an immature, really, really young, really athletic guy who's going to just try to come in the league and take over?
Hmm.
Because Mark, all things considered, this Sixers team doesn't plan to be in this position year after year after year.
Right.
This
Right.
is from everything that we hear from them. Right, this year is an outlier. This year it was kind of like a worst case scenario. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. We're in this
Hmm.
position, and we're going to try to maximize where we are so that we don't press repeat on this.
Right. Right.
It is if I don't know. I feel like the position is where I look at it and go like, you need to get a guy that fits with your young nucleus, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not looking at like how does it fit with Joel and PG, but like how does this guy fit alongside Maxey and McCain?
Yes. Yes. I agree. I think that that's absolutely what they should be thinking about with this draft. Because, like, even though, like, then there's like a player like VJ Edgecombe, right, from
Mm-hmm.
Baylor, who has this really, even though he's a guard, he has this really great, like, two-way potential, like,
Very much so.
and that I don't know, I feel like it's one of those like home run swing kind of things. Like I think Bailey would be very much a home run swing because if he does come in here, he has the athleticism and the length and things like that to be exactly what the Sixers don't
Right.
have. And then, you know, um I feel like we haven't had that, right? Like We
Yeah.
were just talking about Tatum and things like that. We don't have that, or Ann Edwards as well. Like, we don't have that like guy that like, not that Maxey and those guys aren't confident in their abilities and things like that, but we don't have that guy that kind of like grabs the team by the horns, is like, this is mine. You
Right.
know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
um,
I mean, in your heart of hearts, do you think that either one of those two guys can be that guy?
I think Bailey kind of has the he kind of
Out
had
of the two of them, right?
mhm. Bailey has the attitude of a player that carries himself like that, I think, and um, Edgecombe kind of like strikes me as like more mild mannered. I don't,
Right.
like
More team player.
more team guy, team oriented, which, you know, based on things that had happened, like this past
Yeah.
year, maybe you're not. Maybe you're okay with someone coming in here and like rocking the boat a little bit and kind of being like, yeah, that like this is my
I'm if that's the mentality that he's got, and this team kind of is where it is, I'm okay with it.
yeah,
Because guess what? What you were doing before didn't work
yeah,
at all. It was awful.
yeah. All right. And I love a guy too that can come in a draft, or like a young player that has like franchise level potential or something like that. I love a guy that comes in and like has the attitude of like, maybe not better than, but our guys can beat your guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I hear
And
you.
maybe he comes in and he fits like I think I say that about Maxi, right? But Maxi was vocal this year in terms of
Yeah.
like,
Oh yeah.
so it's not like they don't have young players, gifted young players that are like willing to, you know what I mean, like kind of stand on their business, which I think
Most definitely.
helps prevent things that happen like this year. Um, so if you can add another player like that has that mental makeup.
Yeah.
I haven't just, admittedly, I haven't seen Bailey a lot in terms of playing. That was just what I had seen from his interviews and stuff, to the media. But he certainly seems like he has that air of confidence of a player that carries himself like that.
I mean
So,
that department is certainly not lacking on his
mhm,
part. He's got that part completely on to. I look at this and I go like, you have if you got to get a guy that's going to rock the boat, okay.
yeah,
Like this team may need that, right? They may need someone to come in and get in one of like to get in Andre Drummond's face, right? Or to get into PG's face, like to like kind of dig in a little bit and
right,
maybe push those vets that be like, listen, you're either here and you're working with us, or like
yeah,
go do your podcast P stuff. Joel, go figure out what's going on with your knee, and then come back when you can kind of tolerate, a little bit of pain.
yeah,
Um, but I'm okay with that. I kind of like that idea of him coming in, and you're getting a guy who's big and long and athletic and play on the wing, kind of similar to what you might have had with Bridges, right? When
mhm,
they brought Bridges in, that was kind of what we were like. All right, he's long, athletic, right? Put him on the wing, let him get to the rim, let him. He's going to create his own shots. You know that that to me plays in this in what this NBA is becoming,
right,
right? You see these teams that are really successful, right? And you're seeing guys that are long and athletic, and I mean, outside of Boston, right, who chucks up like 700 threes a game, like you got guys that are trying to get to the rim, and especially in the playoffs, you're going to need that. So
yeah. Guys that can
I'm all
switch
for it.
and guard multiple positions too. I mean, like that's a
Yeah,
that's a key to like the long and athleticism thing you mentioned. You know, and they just haven't had that. You know what I mean? Like,
not even
and
close.
even when the teams were good, I mean, they were losing to teams that had that. That
Right.
they're running into Boston and um,
Boston, Cleveland, right? Like
yeah,
you look at these teams that were in the top of the East, right? Like even a team like Detroit, right? Detroit was a team that gave them fits. Like,
mhm,
Indiana, right? Indiana kind of built it, very in a very similar way, but like they kind of hit on a couple of things that worked out, right? That trade for Siakam really
Mhm.
played really well for them, and it's put them in a really great position to now be playing in the Eastern Conference. So like I'm curious to see how this roster plays out
Mhm.
and see
Yeah.
where they go and where they can go, and because at the same time that they're saying they're young and athletic, right? They're also picking up the options on guys that are old.
Right. Right.
Not. I think those guys are player options, like the Andre Drummond, Eric Gordon, Kelly
Yeah.
Oubre, like those guys. Those were player options, but like you're gonna have to make decisions at some point.
Right. Right. And um, too, I mean, we haven't discussed it yet, but I think, what are the w- there's rumors out there that Maury's taking calls on the third pick. So
Okay,
where
but
are
so talk to me about, and we'll kind of put a bow on it here. Like what does that in if you're in Daryl Morey's shoes,
mm,
what does that deal have to look like in order for you to pull a trigger?
I the idea of it scares me. Like the idea of it scares the crap out of me. Like about,
Sure.
especially if, someone like Bailey becomes a star. You know what I mean? Like then it's like
I mean, you know that that's going to happen, right? Like,
yeah. And we'll just add it to like the hall of just all these things that have been like, you know, um difficult to stomach with uh where the Sixers have been
sure.
in recent years, especially when it comes to the draft. I mean, like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
so man, I want to say, you know, it's got to be like a Giannis level
Right.
addition, right? Like you can't get that all-star level guy and think like you're going to like plug that in here. And unless of course I guess it's like somebody that you can put on the wing, but I'm not really sure like who would be worth that, like who's available that
Right.
fits
Like,
that.
like hypothetically, Mark, OKC is not trading you Chet Holmgren for the third
No.
pick.
Right. Right.
Right. Like that, like, so I don't know, like, if you're like, I don't love the idea of trading for a vet at this
Right.
stage. I just don't like it. I
Yeah.
think you already you ran that. We saw that movie last year. You ran that opportunity of like old guy, like old established veteran. We're gonna kind of slog through the season and we'll pull it together in the playoffs. And it looked awful. And it looked awful almost right away.
Right. Right.
Like
You know,
within like 3 weeks of the season, we were just like, "Oh, this is like we got to talk about this again."
yeah. It's like too like Giannis's name is what's out there, right? Like
Mhm.
which I don't fully get, like in terms of like if you're Milwaukee, like Giannis is a player that you try to keep, and like he's a franchise guy, like you know what I mean?
Trading
Like
him would make them instantly irrelevant.
yeah, and it's like I don't. There's nothing that you could get in return that, in my opinion, could like match the value in terms of like Giannis is a special talent, and
Mhm.
even now, and I feel like even if you're the team that has to acquire him, you have to then build your entire group around Giannis because he does a very specific thing. You know what I
Right.
mean? He
Yeah.
plays a
Oh,
very
yeah.
specific way. So, and why wouldn't you if you were trading for a player of that caliber? Like
Correct.
it would be silly not to acquire him and then be like, we like what we have, and we're just gonna have to make it all work. Like it's like
It's the truth, man.
you acquire Giannis and then you build your entire roster around Giannis. It's just like that's what you
Right.
do.
Right.
Uh,
Like the only scenario that I see, right, is like if San Antonio says, "All right, Milwaukee, we'll give you 14, 2, and pick two players."
yeah, yeah,
If I'm San Antonio, right, if I get a chance in the West, to move from draft lottery to pair Giannis, and like that's something that the Spurs would need to do to be competitive in the West. And
Right.
then they can build their roster around those two guys, because you're going to get a lot of guys that are going to want to come and play with those guys.
Right.
But the Sixers at 3, one, you don't have an outside. This is your only asset.
Right.
Like you don't have the stockpile of picks that OKC has, right? You don't have a star that doesn't want to sign with you that you can like. You've got aged assets, right? You're if Embiid is an asset and Paul George is an asset, like then those guys are like they're way past when you could have maximized their potential to trade them.
Yeah. Yeah. We've
But you would have
already.
never traded Joel coming off an MVP,
Right.
right? Like so,
Right.
as much as he wants to say he's shopping that pick,
Yeah.
you might be shopping, but I
Yeah.
don't know if anybody's buying.
Right. And we already, like you said about like the value and stuff, like with guys like PG and Joel, we've already driven them off the lot, right? Their value's already like
Yep.
it's already sunk. So yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, if you're shop pick, I don't know like what you would then turn around and try to trade it for.
Right.
Certainly something that like, that would help immediately make this team better.
Right.
You're probably better off just making the selection. But yeah, I think Bailey's probably going to be the pick if I had to guess.
Yeah.
I think they'll go Bailey, and I am interested to see how that fits. And like I said, I mean, like the mental makeup's a little intriguing to me. Although those comments were kind of like a little, I'm interested, and I wasn't. I felt differently a couple weeks ago, but I think now that they have the third pick, because we weren't really looking at that. I think at that time, it was
Right.
before the lottery, so we didn't know that they were going to jump. But yeah, so I mean, like that's where I'm at with it. I think.
Listen, Mark. We managed to do 45 minutes of Sixers conversation.
Yeah,
That's a win in and of itself.
it's been a while since we've been like, I'm afraid to get excited, but I am excited. I think you can hear it in the way I'm talking about it. I when they got the third pick, I was like, all right, I mean, like maybe we can kind of build around this little young core,
Yeah.
and kind of bridge the gap here.
Mark, if that's not the plan, and here's my final thought. If that's not the plan, then whoever's in charge is doing something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? If you're not seeing the writing on the wall that you need to build around Maxey and McCain and whoever this young pick is, whether it's Harper, Edgecombe, or Ace Bailey, then like I really do think that they're only paying down. Like the only reason that they haven't switched GMs is they're already paying him.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know. They took my soul, my basketball soul this year.
It was rough.
It's going to take a while to earn it back. So listen,
no, I get that.
On the way out, Mark, go hoops,
go hoops,
go hoops.